Now I'm going to walk you through the basics of using jQuery in your web page. The first step is to actually include the jQuery library using a script tag. Now before, we put JavaScript inside of our script tag, but this time I'm going to add a source attribute, and I need to set that to a URL. What should that URL be? If I was working on my own computer and had downloaded jQuery into the same folder as my web page, I could just write jquery.js here. But that won't work here on Khan Academy. Here, I need an absolute URL of jQuery on an online server somewhere. And there is a list of those URLs on jquery.com. And I have one of them here I'll just paste in. There we go. All right, now I want to point out a few things about this URL. The first thing is that it starts with HTTPS. That means that it is a secure URL. We only allow you to bring in secure resources in Khan Academy web pages. And that's generally a good practice in web development. Okay, the second thing is that this is located on a Google server, googleapis.com. This server is called a CDN, a Content Delivery Network, which means that it's optimized for serving static files like JavaScript libraries and serving them very quickly. Now, this Google server is one that I trust, and generally, you should always trust the servers you bring scripts in from, since they could potentially do nasty things to your page. Okay, the third thing is that there's a version number in this URL, 2.1.4. The jQuery library is in active development, and they often release new versions. The numbers farther to the left represent major version changes, versus the numbers farther to the right, which represent minor versions. I'm using jQuery 2 here, which works in modern browsers, but doesn't work in IE 8. On your own site, you can decide which version to use based on what you need. All right, so we have jQuery included. Now let's actually use it inside another script tag. Every JavaScript library exposes functions, and they give their functions names. We have to look into the documentation to find out what those function names are and what they actually do. Well, the jQuery library exposes one main function, and it has a very short name. It's just the $sign. That means that the first thing we write is $, then 2 parentheses, because it's a function, and of course, a semicolon. Now it's nice that this function name is so short, because we're calling that function an awful lot. There are lots of things we can pass to that function, but for this intro example, I'm just going to pass a string h1. Now, when I've done this, this tells jQuery to find all of the h1 elements on the page and return them as a jQuery collection object. Now that I've done that, I can call other methods on the jQuery object in order to manipulate all the h1 elements that it found. Like if I want to change the inner text of all of them, I can call the text function and pass it a string. Dun dun dun, it's happening, yes. And we're done. That is our first bit of jQuery. So we included the jQuery library with the script tag, told jQuery to find all the h1s on the page, and then asked jQuery to change the text of all of them. If you keep going, we'll go through much more in more detail, more ways to select and manipulate elements, using jQuery to respond to user events on the page, plus fun stuff with animation and effects.